Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Once again, it is time for a back and bicep day. And adjusted volumes just a little bit because I'm doing 2 bicep days. I don't feel I need quite as much bicep volume in this day. So I can just focus on really high quality sets, and I actually was really happy with it. All right, one of the things I'm doing different on the pull-ups, I'm trying to go with just a little bit more of my natural grip width and just go into a dead hang on every rep. So for me, the natural grip width is, again, when I have my arms at my side, just a normal relax and just bring them up. And that's what I'm using as, again, just a natural grip width instead of trying to go for the really wide. And you know what? It feels pretty good in my lats. One thing I will say, though, I'm not sure that I feel it even as much or more, but I still definitely feel the lats big time. And the main thing I always point out with pull-ups, again, when I do pull-ups, again, some confusion for people. They're like, why aren't you swinging all the way up over the bar? Well, because, again, it's a lot of pain to do it for me. I have really long arms, don't have the best always ranges of motion with certain things. So there's no benefit, right? It doesn't work the lats anymore. So I kind of, because of the way I lay back a little bit too, I'm just worried about my scapula touching. And as soon as my scapula kind of touch for me at the top, my lats are doing about all they're going to do. They're doing all they're going to do. So mainly for me, the focus is getting that stretch. Notice most of them I go into a hang or try to. A lot of the reps we try to get into a full hang and then pause. So for me, that's really where I feel the lats. And so people are always like, yeah, how'd you build that wide back? Like this is how I did it. And it works for me, and I get that mind muscle connection. We can argue on certain things with ranges of motion, and we can make those arguments, that's fine. But that is where I get the best mind muscle connection. All right, so today I decided to strap up on the rows, right? Now the first set wasn't quite as happy with it because I needed to get into the groove. But again, I'm like, look, at this point, if I do a little bit of cheaty rows, it will probably just help my whole upper back more, help all those things. And I'm getting so much pulling and grip work, and I'm doing direct forearm work. I'm not that worried that if one of my exercises is here that it's a problem. And here's what I mean. I'm doing more total rows and pulling than I used to do. So if only this one exercise is strapped up, my total forearm and grip work is still higher than it used to be. So in this case, though, I feel like, again, I can focus a little more on a little bit more body English, getting a stretch and then not worrying about trying to be a super strict. I can just kind of go with it and chase that, just that nice long range of motion and get that full stretch at the bottom without feeling like it might slip out. All right, and there's where my back is. I don't have the crazy good lighting today like I do sometimes because it's the sun is way up, the door is fully open, so I don't have that half natty lighting. So again, it is what it is. But again, I just wanted to run with this for a while. And again, it's just a case of using different tools. Different tools. I would say on lower volume stuff, it's like, man, I would never strap up for pulling. But when my volumes are where they are now, and I just want to kind of get a slightly different angle to make sure I'm fully developing the back, I don't think it's a problem. So again, trying not to be just dogmatic. Use the different tools in my toolbox. All things considered, the overwhelming majority of my training is completely wrong. And again, we come right back over here. Pull-ups work. So then we go to the seal rows. So this is what I'm doing in this case. I'm combining a slightly cheatier row with a little bit of body English, a little more upright angle, with the seal row that has me perfectly 90 degrees, just like the pull-ups or the other. It's a good intermediate between these two. Does turn it into a little bit of a full body exercise, and that's okay. What this does is it allows me to get very different back angles, right? Since I don't have machines, I don't have cable rows and all this stuff, I just have all free weights. What I'm trying to do here is make sure that my back is being hit from 4 very different angles and approaches. Okay, again, in the pursuit of complete development here. And I know my back is one of my best body parts, but we don't stop training it. Just because I'm going to make arms a specialization, my biceps really, I'm not even going to specialize, I think, in triceps at this point. It's going to be another topic. My triceps are not, I feel like they're not recovering. I noticed it when benching yesterday. My triceps are not fully recovering from all that work. I may need to just say, look, let's get in and just hit them really hard on pressing days and not worry about them. They're going to grow from all that. It's not like they're not getting growth stimulus. we can really only specialize in one body part at a time. And my biceps got neglected the most over the years. So they probably have the most room for improvement. So I'm going to hammer down on 20 plus sets for biceps, okay, every week. Other stuff, it can be a little more reasonable. Okay, it can be a little more reasonable. But even then, the triceps, for example, we know pressing hits triceps pretty hard, unlike the rowing and stuff for the biceps to the same degree. So I feel like if I just get in and get some real high quality progressive overload on a couple of isolation movements for triceps, I'm good, because keep in mind all the pressing I do. I also overhead press on shoulder day. Okay, so context. But the rows, these pretty well at the same weights on these. Like I haven't really improved lately, but I've also been dropping body fat some on most of the back exercises. So I felt like, it's a good time to work in that little bit of bent over row with a small amount of body English and straps. But this stuff is right about what I normally use. So again, one arm dumbbell rows after the seal rows. Again, the trick to these, I like to always row to my chest, right? Through the chest and the armpit. Make sure it hits a little more upper back, right? I am not a fan of when people do the little hip swing thing. It's not my thing. I don't feel the most back activation. I've never been a fan. I don't recommend it. I feel like it shortchanges a lot of people's back. All right, I feel like it shortchanges it personally. Because I've tried that and I notice I don't feel my back nearly as much, right? I don't feel it nearly as much when I do that. So these, it's all been sets of 10. So everything, it was 10s on pull-ups, 8s on the bent over rows, 10s on the seal rows, 10s on the one-arm dumbbell rows. All right, curls, I decided to bump this up. I'm like, the first rep was really sloppy. I'm like, let me not be as strict. If I don't mind using a little bit of controlled cheating and get it all the way up to my face, and I have the eccentric, I'm like, let's try to go heavier. Because again, we're going to get the super isolation on the preacher curls. So again, it's the same way I'm looking at some of these other exercises. We can go heavy. We can use a little bit of controlled cheating. It's not ego lifting because it's controlled. We're still focusing on the primary movers, a good mind-muscle connection, right? Loading everything good. And it actually felt pretty good in my biceps today, to be fair. But again, the same thing, keeping those wrists cocked back so that we have that tension at the top. Okay, this is allowing me to make sure I get some really good tension up near the top of the movement when it's near the face. Okay, so again, not as strict as I've often been doing, but I want to load. I still want to bring the load up. I want it to be a little heavier. And these can absolutely work. So I wanted to do these, and it's like, again, keeping in mind, preacher curls are going to be crazy isolated. And I'm doing those preacher curls twice a week. So we're getting the deep isolation on those. But I'm wanting to make sure I get a full range of motion. So my goal is to lock the elbows at the bottom, bring it all the way up towards the face so that we get both of those major functions of the bicep, right? And I want to just get strong at this. So treat it like a big compound movement. And it is. When you're doing it this way, this is a compound movement. It's not a true isolation because you're using a little tiny bit of hip drive, using a little bit of upper back, all that stuff. And those things do get work to some extent. But again, it felt good, and that's the thing. So then afterwards, I did my dumbbell curls, and then I finished up with the preachers. And the preachers were to failure, super strict, obviously. These, the same thing. I kind of took the same weight I used this weekend. I managed to get 12s on it. I was surprised. I felt like I couldn't even get 10, but I just kept pushing and got to 12s. So the idea here, same thing. Locking all the way out at the bottom, getting into that pronated grip, right? And then rotating them up into a supine position. This made sure I worked all three functions because the bicep really does have three functions. This one is more minor, okay? That supination of the wrist. Flexion of the elbow is primary. Secondary is going to be that rotation of the shoulder, the first 30 degrees. So we're getting all that by bringing these up towards the face, all these movements, right? So we're taking the biceps through the longest possible ranges of motion. And even if these are not super, super strict, it's okay. We're getting a good pump, still taking the muscles pretty real close to failure or to failure. Again, working all the functions of the bicep. Between these two movements, every function has been worked. And I'm not as worried about these being real strict because the preacher curls really lock me in. So that we're getting true solid isolation on the preacher curls. And that's going to be the idea. And like I said, I'm doing them twice a week, so we can't say, oh, the biceps are not getting that. But keeping in mind all these are a different setup. I mean, we're working the full range of motion on all this, and it works. The only thing we would argue is maybe the bottom part of it gets a little shortchanged, on these first two movements. But we make up for that on the preacher curl doubling down. So we could argue the mid-range and contracted and all that is getting hit super hard on these. Even though we're locking out, it might be a slightly unloaded, so a little active insufficiency. But it won't matter because then we do the preachers. And the preachers I'm trying to pause now. I'm trying to get really good at coming down and getting that stretch. So most of the reps I try to pause at the bottom to make sure I get that stretch. And this does hit it. So that one part of the movement, people could argue, well, maybe getting a little short change, and particularly with the little bit of body English, that lockout, the stretch at the bottom, we make sure we get it here. So these, again, 3 vastly different bicep exercises, all done for full ranges of motion. So again, this is how we specialize in something like a muscle like the biceps, of really digging into it and making sure that we are working it top to bottom with hard quality sets and progression. And again, keep in mind, biceps will get hit twice a week. So they are going to be a specialization for me until I get them, caught up to the rest of my stuff. I mean, and we still care about a lot of stuff like upper chest and, and shoulders, all those things, triceps. I'm still trying to bring all of those up considerably. But the biceps themselves really do need the work, right? That's what will change my physique the most, in addition to getting leaner from here. It'll have the most impact. So again, 3 sets of 10 on the preacher curls, and of course we finish up with 1 set of hanging leg raises, which I'm trying to do most of my workouts for the extra ab work, the extra grip work, all those things. But again, overall, pretty happy with today's workout. Went pretty much how I expected, happy with it. So I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.